Je vous propose aujourd'hui, enfin pour finir en tout cas cette journée, on a le plaisir d'accueillir Asana avec un sujet qui est autour de comment optimiser finalement son go-to-market grâce à l'IA. Et donc on a le plaisir d'accueillir sur scène Shannon Sullivan, CMO de Asana.
Hello. Thank you for coming to Maximizing Go-to-Market Impact through AI-powered coordination. The way we work is fundamentally broken, and that's because of bad coordination. I used to work at a very large global software company, and we would put on huge, massive events, and we would waste hours trying to find information that lived in spreadsheets and emails, trying to remember a comment someone made in a meeting where other people weren't in it. And we wasted so much time that would have been better spent for us being productive. And despite all the tools, all the technology that we had, our problem was we didn't have anything that could tell us who is doing what, by when, and most importantly, why. Now, at Asana, we are very passionate about work and what makes people work effectively, and we do a lot of research. And in fact, we study people all over the globe, and we recently did a survey of 2,000 French knowledge workers. Now, what's interesting is some of the problems we see around coordination and collaboration. We see a lot of things globally, but some things are more of an issue, more pronounced for workers here in France. In fact, 94% of French knowledge workers say their companies need to innovate. They need to change how they collaborate and communicate. Now, this is causing a lot of pain for French workers. In fact, we see that 83% of you dread meetings. You hate going into these meetings. And this is fundamentally higher than what we see in other countries, including only 69% in the US. And part of the reason is when we ask French knowledge workers, they tell us they feel a need to look busy, to look productive. And in fact, 60% of executives say sometimes they prioritize looking busy. They might send that extra email or set up that meeting because they want to look busy, but it's making them much less productive. And so what's interesting is the thing that companies need is a coordination layer between all that information that lives in content sources and all the information that lives in communication. They need a single source of truth that can tell them who is doing what, by when, and why, so they can easily respond to challenges, make changes, and make their companies more successful. Now, I'm lucky. I get to visit CMOs and retail brands all around the globe. And what's interesting to me is retail brands are truly innovating. They see what they need to do to be more productive. And a great example of this is Doc Martens. Like many of us, they don't have enough people, they don't have enough budget, they don't have as many hours in the day that they want to do the things they need, like open stores and do global product launches. So they're using a work management platform to make themselves more productive. Some of the things they are doing is using resource management. So when a new project, a new program comes, they're able to easily see which teams have the bandwidth to do the work, which teams are working on lower priority projects that can be recalibrated, and it's making them so much more productive. They're also able to create a global calendar of all their store openings and campaigns and product launches. Now, they don't have to email everyone or call people and say, put your information in the spreadsheet, put your information in the slide, and the minute someone does that, it's out of date the next day. All of this information lives in that coordination layer. It lives in that work management platform. So they are able to seamlessly pull up a calendar that is up to date in real time. They don't have to ask anyone to do it. Now, all of this is going to get that much better, and it's already getting that much better with AI. And when I talk to retail brands, the ones that are truly innovating and the ones that are being the most successful think of AI differently. They don't think of AI as a tool. It's not something that sits over there that, maybe we ask it a question or we ask it to produce some content. It's an actual teammate. It's a part of our team alongside our human teammates actually doing some of the work for us. And a great example is Clear Channel. Clear Channel is another great global company. They have billboards all around the world. And they were wasting time because they would get creative requests from all around. And that the creative requests would come in, and a human, had to look at the request, see if there was enough information, see if they could answer it, either send it back to the person to fill in more information or send it off to a member of the creative team. They're completely running this in AI. Now a request comes in, it's automatically sent to the right place. The AI is smart enough to know. And the AI is also smart enough to know if the request isn't filled out. And sometimes the AI can actually help fill out the requests, so no need to hunt down a person, or they can get it right to the person, again, saving hours. And this happens in real time, seamlessly, 24 hours a day. Now, I am so excited what AI is going to do for all of our businesses. And to talk a little bit more about that, please welcome to the stage my panelists, Alice Goff, Head of Content from Naos, and Nathalie Nahai, AI and Human Behavior Expert. Welcome. All right, so we have a lot to talk about, but before we do, why don't you both introduce yourselves?
Thank you for having me. I will do my best in English. So I'm Alice Goff, Head of Content Factory at Naos. Maybe you know Naos because we produce and then we distribute dermocosmetic products in pharmacies for Bioderma, Institut Esthederm, and Etapure brands. So we distribute our products in pharmacies, retail, but also e-retail, marketplaces, and e-commerce. Actually, I'm leading a team of creatives, motion designers, graphic designers, and a pool of freelancers. And what about, to give you some context, because it's all about go-to-market activation. So how do we work on go-to-market activation? Basically, brands develop with agencies communication concepts, and with one graphical referent in my team, and then we produce a 360 campaigns for the markets.
Fantastic. Nathalie.
And I'm an author, an advisor, and a podcast host. And my work looks at the intersection between persuasive technologies like artificial intelligence, human behavior, psychology, and society and business. So looking at how these things interact and how we can harness AI and persuasive technologies in service to the world we'd like to live in.
Fantastic. All right, Nathalie, I'm going to start with you. So collaboration, what does it mean? It's often invisible. Yet we know from the data, we spend more than 90% of our time at work collaborating with other people. So what are some of the most significant changes that have been made in the last decade?
So obviously we all know that there are new tools coming out every single week. And one of the things that we focus on perhaps less, but is more important, is how it's impacting the way we conceive of work and what we want to prioritize. So you mentioned earlier all these fragmented elements, documents, Excel spreadsheets, minutes, emails. If you could strip out all of that noise so that you can focus purely on the signal and give people the time to focus on what's more intrinsically motivating, not only do their productivity go up, so does their motivation, so does psychological safety, the ability to take creative risks, which is one of the factors that we see as the most important in higher growth companies. So by reducing all of that noise, giving people a greater sense of what the signal is, how it relates to the task and to the primary goal, people have greater agency to then focus on what's important.
That's great. So I have to say, I was a little shocked that we saw that 83% of y'all French workers dislike meetings. So Nathalie, talk about this statistic. Why is it so important that we rethink our meetings?
Okay, so raise your hand if you spend too much time in boring meetings. Okay, and now raise your hand if you spend too much time writing emails when you'd rather be doing something else. Okay, so, it's not all of you, so I want to know what those of you who don't have your hands up, what you're doing. But many people across the world report so much time wasted in ineffective meetings and email threads that are not pertinent to the goals that they have in their role. And one of the things you mentioned is this kind of balance between signaling busyness, which is a value signal. You want to be seen, you want to get promotion, so you have to signal busyness, versus actually doing the productive tasks that will get you in terms of the performance where you need to be. And so part of it is about really saying to people, all right, if you have a system that strips out some of that unnecessary meeting where there's too many voices and perhaps the most important voices are the quiet ones that aren't being heard. If you strip out that noise and you strip out all of the irrelevant email threads, again, it's about the preciousness of time, the purpose. So when you finally do meet, you have the resources you need, the information you need, and the assets you need with the right people in the room to make it count.
Right, so the research I mentioned earlier, we didn't show this statistic on the stage, but we found that 53% of executives, so well over half, are concerned people will make bad decisions off of unreliable AI. How concerned should we be?
We should be concerned. Now, what's interesting here is that there is a big difference. And there was a paper that just came out last week from Columbia Journalism Review, and they were looking at fabrications or hallucinations and found that actually the AI platforms that were more specific in their scope had fewer fabrications and were more reliable. And we know that if you train your models on proprietary real-world data, not only are the results better, but when there are mistakes, because in technology we're still at quite an early stage with AI, when there are mistakes, you have domain experts that are able to catch them more swiftly. So this is really, really important to note, that you can reduce the risk of poor business outcomes through proprietary data, good domain expertise, and specific models specific to your industry.
Fantastic. All right, Alice, let's talk to you for a second. So you've transformed the content production for amazing brands like Bioderma, such an iconic brand with great products. So tell me about your approach with AI at Naxos.
Yeah, well, at Naos, like most, I would say, organization, we are looking for, considering how we can deliver the right products, experiences, services our customer expects. So within our digital transformation journey, we have three main focus areas. First one is individual productivity, like, summaries, facilitating presentations, also knowledge management, agents, that kind of thing. But also in marketing intelligence, because we can leverage AI to enhance SEO strategies. On the second area, much more my topic, it's really process efficiency and optimization, because it's, how we can accelerate the production and the diffusion of our assets on go-to-market activations. So two ideas in this. First one would be, do some test and learn with AI integrated tools, for example, generate, adapt, resize formats, for example. And second would be, think about how we can have faster and more effective, less I would say costly localization and translation tools. Third one would be enhancing, consumer experience, and like many of our competitors, we deploy solutions with like skin diagnosis assistance, that kind of stuff. But more specifically, I would say that, before AI became the hot topic 2 or 3 years ago, in my environment, I was, beginning to work with different brands in different locations, with teams with different ways of working. And actually, we needed a tool to facilitate teamwork and manage demand capacity. So actually, we were scaling our organization, and I knew, because from my background in digital marketing projects, I knew digital and I would say work management platform existed, were possible, and I really wanted to start from here.
Great. So retail and e-commerce leaders, you have so much pressure to innovate faster, right? That's the question on everyone's mind. So how, in your opinion, can automation help teams address some of these operational challenges, like managing omnichannel campaigns, scaling regional projects? There's so much.
Actually, AI in business, it's not just a technology topic, meaning, what's my marketing stack? It's all about organization and governance. How do we collaborate with creatives, partners, agencies, marketing teams? So the key challenge is how we can boost content scalability in response to the growing demand of content, especially in retail and e-commerce. So it's kind of three-variable equation, you know, how to produce more without increasing costs or teams, and while preserving, of course, brand consistency all over the world. So the answer would be, you know, AI-driven, I would say, capabilities to release the best mix modeling content to the markets. But besides, you know, the marketing stack thing, in our Naos ecosystem, we had a very big challenge, meaning basically how multiple teams involved can work together. And we needed to improve things like, you know, content demand planning, and also manage team capacity, but also how we can measure ROI of our campaign. So recently, our biggest, I would say, big move, big success, is our capacity with our tool to convert work of the team into budget. So when you talk about money, it's interesting. And then, you know, we convert time of the teams into driving means. And for example, in 2024, we produced for €1.5 million content production, besides, you know, agency budgets. So when you talk with CDO, financial teams during business reviews, really you have more impact, and it's really, you have more clarity in this. And also we can have a better vision of how we work, what we produce for one campaign, and then we can scale the next campaign, the next project, and how we can improve as well. So definitely this can help better, you know, evaluate and address this content scalability.
That's an amazing result, and I love when we can take the work that we do as marketers and leaders and turn it into €1.5 million. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so let's turn it over back to Nathalie. So let's come back to you. So we talked about why the digital employee experience is so crucial for innovation in French businesses today. What are some best practices that French organizations can adopt to improve the digital employee experience?
So this might not be a popular place to start because it's a little bit more complex, but I think framing how we adopt new technologies is one of the biggest hurdles I see time and again at conferences such as these, and when speaking with people who are in leadership positions who are wanting their teams to come on board and adopt more digital tools. So if you're thinking about resilience and long-term success in your business, you have to think about how you frame the message and how we conceive of these technologies. So there's obviously a cost to using any new tool. We have to learn, we have to figure out how to use it. When we make mistakes, we have to figure out what's gone wrong. So there's often a pain associated, a cognitive pain associated with picking up and learning a new tool. So the first thing is to understand that, and then realize that actually, with many of these platforms, because they do provide that central coordination layer, they're actually making it much easier and much less painful in the long term to embed new practices. So it's going to save you so much more pain in the long term. So that's the first thing, is around framing. The second thing to say is, if you're allowing people to focus on a signal by stripping out the noise, you create an environment in which people can take greater agency. You give them the tools to act along the goals that they need, that are clearly defined, and that increases their intrinsic motivation, which is huge for performance. So if you give people the skills they need, the tools to accomplish those things, and then you create a situation where coordination and collaboration becomes more meaningful and more satisfying, you're also increasing that sense of belonging. And those three factors, agency, so the power to drive your own bus, if you like, or your own project or your own task. Agency, then competence, the right skills to get the goals that you want. And belonging, that sense of relatedness, that falls under the kind of main principle of determination, self-determination. And when that's high, you end up with extraordinary performance and great team culture. So everything benefits when you shift the way in which you start to embrace these technologies to serve the larger goal.
That's great. So Alice, I want to go back to that amazing result that you're driving, because I speak with a lot of retail brands, and their teams spend so much time on repetitive tasks, right? They're doing repetitive tasks. They're not doing the actual work that they can turn into that €1.5 million. So when you think of the structure you have set up with your team regarding doing away with repetitive tasks, what do you think?
Actually, a work management tool is very powerful, and you can see these tools as super assistants, for you in two ways. First would be operating things for you, because we found that low impact, parts of the workflow can be managed without human input, through workflow automation. For example, we set management rules so it can, qualify project at the first stage of traffic management, for example, and assign a task, organize items in the right file or in the right project, and also escalate overdue actions. So that's the first thing you can really use to be more effective. And second, providing information. For instance, when I returned from vacation last Monday, I just asked, Asana to show me the hot topics and summarize some, the activity of some project during the past week. And it can also suggest really areas of improvement, because it's a great project manager, very relevant in terms of improvement recommendations. So that's good.
Fantastic. All right, any last tips or advice for people optimizing workflows and making the most of collaboration? I mean, you've cracked the code, so tell everybody.
I'm not sure I really cracked the code, because I'm looking for the next roadmap. But, I couldn't agree more on what you were saying, Nathalie, because for optimization, of workflows, I would say first choose a tool, that fits with your organization and that will be able to adapt to your organization and also the trends, the new workflow, the new kind of organization you're going to have. For any tool to be effective, you really have to have the buy-in of other departments. So my advice would be, start small, and then if you fail fast. But if you succeed, then speak out loud. And actually, we launched a proof of concept involving teams that used to collaborate closely. And then we used that momentum, to fine-tune the approach. So that would be the first thing. Second, change management is really critical, because in this kind of implementation, it's not just having a new tool. It's shifting habits, expectations. And definitely, it's also requires, I would say continuous upskilling on the basics, because, reinforcing best practices, revisiting how the team manage the tool and use the tool, and definitely help them, to stay aligned when organizations change and when the tool change a bit also. So I would say engaging, key stakeholders is really also very, very important. In our case, implementation took 3 to 4 months to fully track 100% of our, would say, the requests. So now we have fully centralized requests, no more Teams messages or scattered emails, really zero. And everything is streamlined and visible, so that's cool.
Fantastic. So thank you, Alice. Thank you, Nathalie. Let's have a hand for our panelists. So we hope this discussion sparked some new ideas for you on how to think about work and your workflows and teams. And if you're interested, we look forward to seeing you at the networking reception tonight. And if you're interested in learning more about Asana and work management, please come visit our booth tomorrow at H08 at the entrance to Forum 2. Thank you and have a great evening.